Hello and welcome to Wide Angle. The juggernaut of the caliphate rolls on and no one knows which way it might lurch. At the moment, it is involved in a very important and a critical battle in a town called Kobani. This happens to be on the Syrian and the Kurdish border, and thereby hangs a tale. It is an important battle, and to unravel and to explain to us what exactly is going on, what the aim is, we have a panel here. On my extreme right, we have Professor A.K. Pasha from JNU. Beyond him, V.L. Awad, who is the president of the Foreign Correspondents Club and the doyen of foreign correspondence in India. John Cherian, foreign editor of Frontline magazine. John, why don't you kick it off? Why is Kobani critical?
Well, if the IS takes Kobani, that means they control all the territory from Mosul up to the Turkish border. And latest reports say that the IS is also heading towards Baghdad. If they capture Kobani tomorrow, and reports say that most of Kobani is already under IS control. It's only a question of days. Today, the U.S. Secretary of State said that, they really don't care about Kobani, whether it falls or not. That is not the goal of the Americans. The goal of the Americans is a long fight against the IS, which means they are given up on Kobani and they are virtually given up on the Kurds. And what is more important about Kobani is that if Kobani falls, the Kurdish revolt may once again be reignited in Turkey. The PKK, the Kurdish Workers' Party, leadership has already announced that if Kobani falls, they may start the revolt against the Turkish government. And the devious role being played by the Turkish government vis-a-vis Kobani and vis-a-vis the Kurds, yes, is now come into the spotlight. And as you know, the Kurds, if they unite, and there are signs that even the Kurds in northern Iraq are now veering towards the PKK, and there could be a united Kurdish front against both Turkey and, ipso facto against the Americans.
Is the caliphate, Professor Pasha, are they, or put it this way, are the Turks opposed to the Islamic state?
Not really.
The Turks, you are saying, are not opposed to the IS?
No, not really.
Explain when you say not really.
Well, the genesis of the Islamic State owes to Turkish support from day one, and the support given to the various Islamic groups by Turkey with the sole intention of bringing down Bashar al-Assad's regime. And that target remains. And they feel that that is more important. Number two, they also want to weaken the Kurdish fighting elements, whether it is YKG or PKK, so that
YKG being the Syrian Kurdish element, and PKK.
So that the Turkish, Syrian, and further on the Iraqi-Turkish border is sanitized. And they also have in mind no-fly zone, humanitarian corridor, so on and so forth. This is the real position.
Tell me something. I'll come to you, Awad, just now. When they got into this battle in Syria, initially what Turkey was trying to do was to bargain with Bashar al-Assad, accommodate the Muslim Brotherhood, the Akhwan elements in Syria.
Exactly.
They had gone there as the leaders of the Akhwanul Muslimin, am I right?
Right.
So therefore, the people they are supporting are Akhwanul Muslimin, am I right?
Of the extreme type.
Of the extreme type. This extreme type is opposed to monarchies everywhere.
Because they consider them un-Islamic.
right? So therefore, this whole energy, if the Turks have their way, this energy is directed towards the monarchies of the GCC, which means Saudi Arabia.
They want to have a
Will
Sunni.
you elaborate on that?
They want to have a Sunni caliphate based on the Ottoman legacy of nearly 500 years of domination of the Arab world. And this they want to achieve by support to IS. This is just a front.
If this game succeeds, the people who should be most worried are the GCC and Saudi Arabia. Am I right or am I wrong?
Including Jordan.
Including Jordan.
Yes.
And including Morocco. In Morocco, they found recruiting cells for the ISIS.
So all these monarchies are on the firing line, and Turkey is using IS as a front from which to fight against.
Is that the big strategic battle going on? Therefore, I'm just bringing you up to that.
There are at least 6 conflicting battles going on in Kobani.
We'll come to the 6 of them, but provided my friend Awad agrees with you.
Well, I think if we look at it, it is Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is the Islamic Khalifa de facto, but the actual one is Erdogan. As Professor Basha have said it very clearly, he already nurtured the IS and they have already opened the border to infiltrate into Syria, which we have seen in this. Now, what we are witnessing, Saeed, is 2 things in the region. One is that the recoming of the American from being the watching dog of what was going on to now be the offensive in taking the lead on the act that they are the one presence, they are the people of this region is the American interest. We used to talk about vacuum. The second part, which is more important, is that the Americans spoke of a moderate Taliban, of a hard Taliban, of a moderate rebels, of a terrorist. Now we're having a moderate Kurd and a rebel Kurds. The rebel Kurd or the terrorist Kurd considered by the American and the Turkish are the one follower of PKK and Abdullah Öcalan. That is why it is Turkey has been bargaining with the American and the West to participate in the war in Syria. They wanted the piece of the cake, which means that the Syrian regime has to be removed, A. B, the PKK also should be liquidated because these are causing the strategic danger to the Turkish border. But the person who cooked the poison, he tested. Now the makeshift of the war not only will be in Syria, it is more in Turkey. More than 50 people died, more than 100 public properties have been destroyed, and the street of Turkey in boil because they are refusing the Kurds to allow them to go and fight the IS, and also they are not allowing the Syrian Air Force to come closer to the border to Kobani to attack their position there. Therefore, it is a very clear game now. It's in the open that the American, even General Bonetta was saying himself 2 days ago that the battle of the IS is going to be for 30 years. 2003, when we were with the American, when they invaded Iraq, they made it very clear. And I interviewed people, engineers, who were building the American castle in Baghdad. And you know, they used to make wall of 10 meters. One of the engineer was an Indian. He told me that we are building a 10 meter thickness of a wall. That means the American coming for 40 years to stay. They are not there to leave Iraq now or no. So the message is very clear on this.
John, the Americans are there to destroy ISIS, or are they there to navigate by their aerial bombardment to sort of push them, nudge them in certain directions, and therefore use their energy for their targets? Whom targets? American targets. Is that the strategy?
No, I am confused about the Americans, what exactly is the American strategy, and I am sure even President Obama is. You see, he ordered strikes even against the Jabhat al-Nusra, which is also very close to the Turkish government, and they along with IS were doing the actual fighting in Syria. So I don't know what the American policy is, and interestingly, the statement by Joe Biden a couple of days ago, in which he explicitly said that it is Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the UAE which had a role in propping up this new militant groups. And he said that $500 million went into the arming and recruitment drives, which ultimately helped the IS and the organization like the Jabhatul Nusra. So I think they are confused. But one thing is clear, you know, they want to exploit the situation and retain control over the oil and gas flows from the region. You know, America is no longer dependent on oil or gas from the Gulf because they have their own shale gas. But they want to retain control so that China and Russia do not gain from, you know, the pipeline and oil politics in the region. So I think they have, and also most interestingly, the pivot, Obama's you know, famous pivot to the east is now on the back burner. He has pivoted back to the Middle East.
Is that a pivot, or is that is he fumbling there, Professor Pasha, or do you spot a great strategic design? I mean, United States of America is a superpower. It has hundreds of think tanks. It has some of the most bright thinkers and all their campuses. They must be thinking very hard. And is this chaos all they are able to produce?
No, I don't buy the argument that Obama is not clear in his strategy. I think they are absolutely clear and they are focused and they have applied their minds. Number one, to teach Erdogan and Turkey a lesson. Because for 10, 12 years they have been veering towards a very independent Turkish foreign policy, which, as you saw from 2003, they didn't allow the American troops to enter Iraq. And now also they are not on the same wavelengths. And they are preparing, and Erdogan had to use the military to suppress the Turkish recent riots in about 12 cities. So the military is re-emerging, which Erdogan had suppressed. Number two, they are also reigniting the Kurdish issue to put pressure on Erdogan. And thirdly, they also want to show that his defiance on Israel is a price to be paid. Of late, he had used that Israeli card, also Palestine issue. So
After
this is one
Marmara incident,
yes,
and
this is one between America and Turkey.
Right.
And now it is reflected in the innumerable demonstrations in all the European capitals, from London to Paris, Germany, wherever the Kurds and Turks are there. And it is the sort of a global upsurge against the Turkish foreign policy. Number two, there is this regional Cold War between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which is reflected, which is shown as Shia Sunni. There is also this Qatari Saudi Cold War, Wahhabi versus Wahhabi. And then you have the Wahhabi Saudi and the super Wahhabi Islamic State confrontation going on. And then, of course, the Islamic Brotherhood, which you talked about through the Al-Nusra, so on and so forth. Then, of course, the Al-Sisi's war against the Ikhwan. So all of these mini civil wars.
You have not mentioned Gaza. Where does Gaza fit into all of this?
No, this is part of the Ikhwan al-Muslimin. Gaza is
now part of the Ikhwan al-Muslimin,
exactly,
and not a Palestinian issue.
No.
Is that what you're saying? That by having spread the canvas, now this Palestinian issue, which was the focus in West Asia, is not there. It is now Gazans are seen as part of the Ikhwan al-Muslimin.
Exactly. That is precisely one of the aims of the US-Israeli policy, to focus on non-Israeli, non-Palestinian issue. That look, this is a major threat. Netanyahu and Americans have been always saying that you have this monster of Islamic State and the other smaller monsters which are creeping up. We need to tackle that. And Hamas is part of that bigger monster. That is how they are looking at it.
That's how it is. Awad, you seem to be agreeing so much with Professor Pasha.
Well, I echo many of the point. In fact, it is, as all we know, that the American interest in the region is two, is oil and Israel. So everything is done, unfortunately, to all of us, is Israeli-centric, because nothing has been done in favor of the Arabs, if you look at the chronology of the American intervention in the region. Therefore, destabilizing Syria, disintegration of Syria, Iraq, Egypt, and the North African state of the Arab world, it is a prime objective of the Israelis' policy, which has been dictated, which has been written extensively on it, and that's the policy. So therefore, the American is very clear on their position. Yes, it would be naive to think that this is an intelligent failure about IS. It wasn't a sudden emergence. We knew it. It was the culmination of 2003 invasion, and throughout they have been supporting and arming and putting the arms. Even Jordan has been the center of the CIA, which has been training people, have been funding, and then are smuggling into now. Turkey now in its stand, it is showing that they are going to train. You see why they wanted to take it a long fight side. The long term fight, because they don't have anybody on the ground. Now they will go, they will create a no-fly zone, then they will bring people to train, and then they will topple the Syrian regime. That is the objective. So if you are toppling the Syrian regime, look where is the success of ISIS. The success of ISIS is in the oil of Iraq, 45%. It is in the northeastern part of Syria where you have the maximum number of gas exploration has been discovered, and the oil of the Syrian, which means they have to put their hands on a zone created by this IS monster, and then we will deal with the rest of the Arab world. And that is the main, if we come back to the same thing, it's a conflict, in regional conflict and a global look. The global look of it is isolation of Russia from the Mediterranean, because of Tartus port is the only military base. This Black Sea also they have tried in Ukraine and Crimea. They are trying to isolate Russia and also to contain China. That's the policy of the United States in the long run. But I think they have dragged their feet into the region, because now Europe is at a checkpoint. Also, it is the IS and Turkey, as the professor said. These are the three major players in the region which will pay the price for whatever going to be the stability in that part of the world.
John, when President Obama announced the so-called coalition of the willing who came out up front immediately were the following: Saudi Arabia, GCC, Qatar, Jordan, and Bahrain. Is there anything I've left out in this? No. Now, who would be in that? Now, let us look at a game strategy. Who would be in their target? Imagine the guns in the hands of all these powers. Whom do they want down immediately?
Like I said before, I think the American policy, to me at least, it looks very confused because now they're training, so-called rebel forces, Syrian rebel forces in Saudi Arabia. And today I read that even the Turks have agreed to train Syrian rebel forces. And these Syrian rebel forces, as previous examples have shown, as soon as they enter Syrian territory, I mean, either they give up their guns, they sell their guns, or they join the IS or the Jabhat al-Nusra, because they have been so infused by the Wahhabist ideology. So I don't know what what American policy is all about. But also there are reports, I don't know whether Dr. Awad can clarify. There seems to be some sort of an understanding between Damascus and Washington. You see, there are articles even in the New York Times, editorials, pleading with the Obama government to have an understanding with Assad. Assad is a better bet in the given circumstance. I mean, the example of Libya is being quoted in many American papers. The mess Libya is in and the chaos that country is. They don't want Syria also to fall into a trap. So I don't know whether the very fact that IS was targeted, itself a clue. And as of now, the Americans are staying away from the Syrian forces, and there seems to be some sort of a tacit understanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Professor Pasha, you are aching to say something.
There are two things. One is this Kobani war is leading to a slow rapprochement between Iran and America, if not the entire West. There are already very strong signs, and this will also have implication on Israel-Iran rapprochement, which will follow the larger thing. The other,
so there is some good coming out of it, is there?
I think so.
You're saying there's some good and some bad.
Yes.
There is a soul of goodness in all things evil.
Yes.
Would men observingly distill it out?
Exactly.
So you are distilling out some good from this.
And the bad part, if you can call that way, is the training of Uyghurs, Chinese Uyghurs, some say 3,000, 5,000, who are actually fighting in Syria now. And about 2,000 plus Chechens who are fighting in. and you have all of these
I
fighters.
mean, are you saying that these people are being trained and this is therefore a
further.
hatchery? This is a hatchery to be used, say, in China,
Xinjiang.
just as the Chechens were used in the Caucasus.
And will be used in future also if Russia doesn't behave in the manner the West wants.
You know, it has become, you had the story about 4 or 5 months ago when Prince Bandar bin Sultan, in a secret visit, turned up in Moscow. It was supposed to be hush-hush.
Carrot and stick policy.
And
offered the carrot.
can you imagine that he said, look, the world is yours, but give us Bashar al-Assad, stop supporting him.
Otherwise, Chechen fighters will
Otherwise,
derail
no,
the Sochi.
The Sochi
Winter
Olympics will be spoilt. And we know all that, we control all the terrorist groups. Can you believe it?
And he also said this has the backing of the White House.
And this other
To cap it all.
Can you imagine this dialogue going on with the president of in the Kremlin, and they kept it secret.
So
until they discovered that these Bandar was leaking some things here and there, then they leaked it to the a Lebanese newspaper. So this is shocking.
So what I'm saying is the Americans have a lot of issues to tackle through IS. One is the Chinese, one is the Russians, one is the Saudis.
Professor, you have studied international affairs closely. Have you ever gone through in history a phase so brazen, where they are so brazen about, I mean, as I said, he turns up in Moscow and he says, listen, we control all the terrorists, they will work for you or they will work against you.
Well, the British tried during the First World War against the Ottomans.
Yes.
And they were very firm.
Yes.
I mean, on the Balfour Declaration, on various issues with the Turks.
Well, the first thing, you're talking of Balfour Declaration, the very first thing that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi announced, that Sykes-Picot is dead. Is finished. If Sykes-Picot is gone, then Balfour is about the same time, isn't it, John?
The whole foundation.
Yes. Yeah, but that is, I think he is appealing to the Arab street. And the fact of the matter is that many of the fighters, many of his officers are former Baathists, former secular Baathists who are guiding the IS fighters. I remember when in the last days of Saddam, when I was there, Izzat Ibrahim gave a speech and he said, if the Americans invade, we are even willing to join with the devil. So and this has unfortunately happened. So it is, in a way, the IS struggle among the Sunnis especially is viewed as a nationalist struggle. And when he refers to Sykes-Picot.
Sorry, John. One thing, because time is running out, and I find I've just been talking to some people in Baghdad. There is no governance. These Shias who've come out of Mosul, they have been parked in big bins, between Karbala and Najaf, 120 kilometers. You have these big halls for tourists, for pilgrims.
Yeah.
These pilgrims are tearing at the seams with all these refugees from Mosul and other parts. They are running around. There's very little governance. There is the feeling in Baghdad is that the Americans are not going for the ISIS at all.
Well, if you see what they have been attacking in Syria, they have been attacking empty buildings, they have been attacking the crops, the CISOs where we keep all our crops for the Syrian grains. They can see them. It's a plateau terrain. They can watch them. They see them attacking in hundreds of rockets against the Kurds, and yet there not a single shot fire against them. So this is exactly what we are talking about, the future look of the strategic look side to it. Look, the American attacking from the sky, and this will only fuel the Sunni majorities to support, to recruit to IS. This is one. The second part, you also recreated the vacuum in Syria, in the northern part, and in Iraq stateless, where you created non-state actors. You surpassed the international law by coming to attack this place. Mujahideen in Afghanistan were created by Carter even 6 months before the invasion of the Soviet Union. And
That's
you
true.
know it. So
one final, now the time is running out. John, Awad, Professor Pasha, field it, all of you. The Americans are saying that they have come here to fight ISIS. but they will be here for 30 years. It will take them 30 years to fight this formation which they discovered day before yesterday, number one. So they are going to be the gatekeepers. They are going to be the bouncers protecting some regime right there. And the most vulnerable of those regimes which we have not mentioned here is the GCC and the Saudis. The Americans are there to protect these regimes, because should they become vulnerable, then their sole aim of then the biggest ally, Israel, becomes extremely lonesome in that area.
Yeah. To be fair, the American president has said 3 years. Other American analysts have added 0.
Oh.
So it has become 30.
Right.
Maybe this 30 part latter is accurate because that's where the energy specialists argue that oil and gas is going to last at present day.
Who are the sole
at present day production level?
Who are the sole beneficiary of IS creation? US, Turkey, and Israel. Beyond this 3 point, nobody is benefiting out of it. And you will see the fallout will be for this treaty.
Certainly. I spoke to people and I find that they are in very, very dire straits. The creation of the ISIS appears to have invited the Americans in the region to protect
the monarchies,
whoever is there. And Professor Pasha, I have a feeling that what you said makes sense. I mean, how can they open-ended, we are here for 30 years? They're here for years. And 2, 3, 4 years makes
Banetta
sense.
was said, he himself said it. We are there for 30 years. Day before yesterday he said it. General Banetta, he said it himself, we are going to fight for a long years, which is 30 years. And they have already been there for 13 years. That means they have 40 years. That's actually exactly what the engineer said, that they build up those castles, the American will stay for that long. And we are expecting this to happen.
That is the period in which oil and gas is likely to last, and that is very crucial.
But thank you very much. Thank you. The Americans have now found shale gas, and I thought that was going to keep them busy at home. But there seems to have been a change in that script, and the Americans are back once again with great vigor in the fields of West Asia. On that note, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you and goodbye.